I still remember the first night at Camp Blackhawk. It was 2008, and I had just been deployed with my unit in a remote part of Afghanistan. Everyone warned me about the area: old villages, abandoned bunkers, and whispers of soldiers who vanished during previous missions. I laughed it off at first. Ghost stories were easy to ignore when you were busy surviving daily attacks. But the first night changed everything. The camp was quiet, almost too quiet. The mountains surrounding us blocked all radio signals, and the wind whistled like it was trying to speak. My bunkmate, Ramirez, kept looking over his shoulder. He said it felt wrong to sleep here. I didn't understand him, not yet. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound I can't forget. It was faint at first. Footsteps, soft and slow, on the gravel outside the bunkers. I froze. We were in the middle of enemy territory. Everyone should be asleep. I grabbed my rifle and whispered to Ramirez. He shook his head, too scared to speak. The footsteps grew louder. They weren't like human footsteps. They sounded heavier, almost dragging. Then came the whispers. Low, hollow voices speaking in a language I didn't understand. I tried to wake another soldier, but no one responded. The voices seemed to move closer, circling the bunkers. I peeked through the window. What I saw made my blood run cold. Shadows, dozens of them, moving between the tents and walls, but there were no lights. They didn't run, they didn't walk, they floated. I blinked, thinking it was my mind playing tricks. But Ramirez was staring too, frozen, his face pale, eyes wide. Then one shadow stopped. It looked directly at our bunker. Its eyes glowed red for a moment, and I heard my name. Jackson, it hissed. I froze. I'm not a religious man, but that night I prayed. I don't remember falling asleep. When morning came, everything looked normal. No footprints, no signs of anyone outside. Just us, alive and shaking. The next few days were worse. Soldiers started disappearing. One night, Sergeant Mills went on a patrol and never returned. We searched for hours, found nothing. Then Corporal Green vanished while checking the perimeter. Each disappearance was always at night. We'd hear the whispers, the dragging footsteps, then silence. Morning would reveal an empty tent, an empty bunk, but no trace of a struggle. One night, I decided to follow the sound. I grabbed my flashlight and slipped out quietly. The camp was still. The shadows were waiting. At first, I thought I saw movement between the mountains, but when I shone the light, nothing was there. Then the whispers started, louder, sharper. They called out to me by name, mocking me. I saw something crawling on the ground, a figure in old military uniform, decayed, with hollow eyes. Its mouth moved, but no sound came out. I froze. My flashlight flickered, and when it came back, the figure was gone. I turned to run, and that's when I felt it. Cold fingers grabbing my ankle, dragging me into the dirt. I kicked and screamed, but I woke up in my bunk. I told no one. They wouldn't believe me. Everyone had their own stories, some worse than mine. Then came the final mission. We were sent to an abandoned village to retrieve supplies. The helicopter dropped us at the edge, and the village was silent, covered in dust and old debris. As we walked in, the temperature dropped suddenly. Our breaths fogged in the air, even though it wasn't that cold. We heard chanting, faint at first, then loud. We followed it to an old crumbling house. Inside, the walls were covered with carvings, names, dates, strange symbols. It looked like someone had been writing for decades. Then I saw them, the shadows. They filled the house, dozens of them surrounding us. They didn't attack physically, but their presence was suffocating. I could hear every fear I'd ever had being whispered back to me. Ramirez screamed and ran, straight into the shadows. We never found him again. I thought we were hallucinating, but the recordings we sent back proved otherwise. On night vision cameras, the shadows moved against the wind, against logic, ignoring walls and floors. They watched us silently, and one soldier swore he saw himself in their eyes, like they were copying him, learning him. After that mission, the command pulled our unit back. Officially, it was combat fatigue and stress-related disappearance. But I know the truth. Those weren't hallucinations. Those weren't fatigue. Camp Blackhawk is alive, and it feeds on fear. Soldiers disappear because the shadows want them, not the Taliban, not the mountains, just the shadows. I left the military soon after. I don't talk about what I saw. Most people wouldn't believe me. But every time I close my eyes at night, I see the shadows, hear the whispers, and feel the cold fingers dragging me back to that village. So after that mission in the abandoned village, Our unit was shattered. Some soldiers refused to talk. Others drank heavily, trying to drown what we had seen. But we all knew one thing. Camp Blackhawk wasn't just a base. It was a trap. A few weeks later, I got orders to return. The higher command insisted the shadows were just local superstition. They needed us to secure a new supply route through the mountains near the old village. I didn't want to go, but in the army, you don't argue. We arrived at night, the helicopter's blades slicing through the cold air. The mountains were silent, too silent. Even the usual wildlife didn't stir. Our unit set up camp near an old road, cracked and abandoned, the asphalt broken by weeds. Corporal Diaz, a skeptic like me, joked nervously, "If we start seeing ghosts, I'm leaving." We laughed, but the laughter didn't reach our eyes. Everyone felt the tension. Night fell. I tried to sleep, but something was wrong. The air was thick, like it was pressing against our skin. Around midnight, we heard it, the dragging footsteps again. Only this time, they came from the mountains, not the camp. Private Lewis went to check. He never returned. The rest of us heard him calling for help, but it wasn't him. It was distorted, echoing like it was coming from multiple places at once. We grabbed our rifles and searched. The night vision goggles barely helped. Shadows moved where there shouldn't be shadows. They weren't running, just floating, circling us, whispering our names. One of them imitated Lewis perfectly, his voice pleading, scared, calling my name. I almost ran into it before Sergeant Mills grabbed me. We retreated to the helicopter landing zone and called in support. When the second helicopter arrived, we realized something horrifying. The landing zone wasn't empty. The shadows were there too, standing in the open field. The pilots refused to land. We had no choice but to stay in the mountains overnight. The next morning, we found what remained of Lewis. Or what we thought was Lewis. His uniform was shredded, his body twisted unnaturally, eyes wide open in terror, mouth frozen mid-scream. The medical officer refused to touch him. I can't forget the look in his eyes. We pushed forward anyway. The mission was critical. But as we moved along the mountain road, we started noticing patterns. Abandoned vehicles, destroyed bunkers, old signs warning, "Do not enter." Some of them were decades old. It was as if soldiers from different wars had vanished in the same area, and the shadows had been waiting all this time. One night, we camped near a ravine. The wind howled like voices. I couldn't sleep. Around 2:30 a.m., I heard whispers, this time louder, clearer. "They're mine, all mine." I woke the others. Sergeant Mills ordered everyone to stay in their tents. I peeked out, and I wish I hadn't. A shadow, enormous, darker than night itself, stood at the edge of the ravine. Its eyes glowed red, piercing through the darkness. It moved closer without sound, gliding over rocks, ignoring trees, ignoring the wind. Private Chen screamed. The shadow reached out, and I swear, I saw his body jerk violently, as if invisible hands were lifting him. Then he vanished. The rest of us ran blindly, but Sergeant Mills shouted us back. We regrouped, but Chen was gone. Over the next few days, the losses continued. Every soldier had their own encounter. Hallucinations, shadows, whispers calling their names. Some saw their past mistakes, their worst fears, their deepest guilt reflected in the shadows. Others disappeared entirely, leaving only terrified screams echoing through the mountains. I started documenting everything. Each night I wrote in my journal by flashlight. It became my anchor. I noted the times, the patterns, the locations where the shadows appeared. I realized something. The shadows were drawn to fear, to guilt, to memories. They weren't random. They learned about us, studied us, and they waited, always waited. Then came the worst night. We had to cross an old bridge over a deep canyon. The bridge was made of steel and wood, rusted and broken in places. As we stepped onto it, the wind picked up. Fog rolled in, thick and suffocating. And then the whispers started, not just around us, but from below the bridge, from the canyon itself. Corporal Diaz stepped forward. He said he could see movement in the fog. I tried to warn him, but it was too late. Shadows emerged from the mist, dozens of them. They were not human anymore. Their limbs stretched unnaturally, their faces twisted, mouths opening wider than possible. They screamed in unison, a sound that froze my soul. Diaz disappeared first. I watched as the shadows enveloped him, his screams fading into the fog. I tried to shoot, but the bullets passed through them like air. Sergeant Mills shouted orders, but no one could move. Fear held us frozen. I ran. I jumped from the bridge into the canyon below. The fall should have killed me, but I landed hard, broken but alive. When I looked up, the shadows had retreated. They didn't follow me. Not yet. I crawled for hours, hiding in the rocks, until I found the road again. The rest of the unit was gone. The bridge was empty. The shadows had claimed them all. I finally made it back to the command post. My report was questioned. They said it was an ambush, an accident. But I know the truth. Camp Blackhawk isn't just haunted, it's alive. It watches, it waits, it chooses its victims. And the shadows, they aren't ghosts of the dead soldiers. They are something older, something hungry. I've tried to warn others. Some call me crazy, but I've seen it with my own eyes. Soldiers disappear. Helicopters fail. Night vision cameras capture movement where there is none. And the whispers, they never stop. Even now I can hear them in my sleep. Sometimes, when I'm alone, I swear I see a shadow in the corner of the room. Its eyes glow red. It knows my name. It's patient. It's waiting. And one day, it will return for me. I don't know how to end this story. Maybe there's no ending. Maybe the only choice is to survive, to keep moving, to never go back. But the fear never leaves. It follows me everywhere, like a shadow I can't escape. Camp Blackhawk remains abandoned officially, but rumors persist. Soldiers vanish. Helicopters never return. Shadows are seen on cameras, always moving, always watching. No one talks about it openly. Those who do are dismissed as insane. I can't say I blame them, but I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and I know the shadows are real. After surviving the canyon fall, I barely made it back to base. I was broken, physically and mentally, but I couldn't stop thinking about the others. Ramirez, Chen, Diaz, Mills, everyone I'd trained with vanished into shadows. I was alone, carrying the knowledge of what truly haunted Camp Blackhawk. The command insisted I debrief and then return home, but before I could leave, orders came through, a final mission. The objective was to scout an old fort further in the mountains, Fort Carson. It had been abandoned for decades but was rumored to hold supplies critical to operations. No one knew, or maybe no one dared, what had been inside for the last 50 years. I knew, but I said nothing. We were a small unit now, me, Sergeant Harding, and 3 others who had survived prior missions. Our journey started at dusk. The mountains seemed darker than ever, the sky low, heavy with clouds. The road twisted, crumbling, cutting through steep cliffs. The silence was suffocating. Not even birds or wind disturbed it. By nightfall, we reached the old village near the fort. It was deserted, yet signs of life lingered, broken furniture, rusted vehicles, and strange symbols carved into walls. The air smelled like decay and ash. I could feel the shadows watching from the darkness, just out of sight. We set up a temporary camp. Sergeant Harding tried to joke, but the tension was palpable. That night, the whispers returned. Not faint, but clear, each of us hearing our own name, our own fears repeated back. I tried to ignore it, but my hands shook as I loaded my rifle. At midnight, the shadows appeared, not like before. This time, they were fully visible. Dark, shapeless forms, taller than men, moving with impossible speed. Their eyes glowed a dull red. One floated near Ramirez's old bunk area. I swear I could see him in the shadows, screaming silently. The whispers became screams. Sergeant Harding ordered us to move, but the shadows blocked the path. They weren't attacking physically. They didn't need to. Fear alone was their weapon. The men panicked, firing blindly, but their bullets passed through the figures. I ran, dragging 2 of the men with me. One disappeared mid-step, leaving nothing but a scream echoing in the night. I could see the shadows stretching, twisting, almost alive. Their forms multiplied with every moment, surrounding us. We finally reached the fort. Its gates were rusted, hanging off their hinges. Inside, it was worse than the village. Hallways twisted in impossible ways. Rooms appeared and disappeared. Our maps became useless. Every turn we took led to more shadows, more whispers, more fear. Then I saw something impossible. On the walls were hundreds of names, carved deep into stone. Dates from decades ago. Soldiers who had vanished here. Soldiers from every war fought in the mountains. Their faces appeared in the carvings, screaming silently. I realized the shadows were not spirits of the dead. They were something older, feeding on fear for generations, keeping the names of every victim as trophies. Sergeant Harding tried to keep order, but one by one the others succumbed. Their fear became visible, distorted, their bodies twisting before vanishing entirely. I hid in a side room, listening to the shadows' whispers, knowing they were calling me next. Hours passed. Time had no meaning inside the fort. The shadows didn't sleep. They moved through walls, floors, ceilings. One appeared right in front of me, a massive form, eyes glowing red, mouth opening impossibly wide. It whispered my name, laughing in a way that froze my soul. I ran. Somehow I made it to the top of the fort, into the abandoned watchtower. The wind howled through broken windows. From here, I could see the mountains, the ravine, the canyon where my men had vanished. And I realized something terrifying. The shadows were not bound to the fort. They were everywhere. The mountains, the canyons, the abandoned villages. They waited, patient, immortal. I remembered Ramirez's words from our first night. It feels wrong here. He hadn't been wrong. Camp Blackhawk, Fort Carson, the mountains themselves, they were alive. They weren't just haunted, they were predators. I tried to escape. I rappelled down the tower, breaking my leg on the rocks below. Pain shot through me, but I kept moving. I crossed the canyon, ran through the village until I finally reached a small road. I flagged down a military convoy, barely conscious. The survivors were few. The official report said we were ambushed by enemy forces. They listed missing soldiers as killed in action. But I know better. I know what I saw. I know what happened. The shadows didn't care about politics, nationality, or war. They wanted fear. They hunted us, one by one, and they succeeded. Even now, years later, I hear the whispers. In every dark room, every abandoned building, every shadow cast by streetlights, I see them. Their red eyes glimmering, waiting for me, waiting for anyone who dares enter the mountains. I tried to warn others. I wrote letters, reports, even tried contacting journalists. Everyone dismissed me. PTSD, they said. Trauma. But they don't understand. I saw the shadows. I felt them. And they never stop. I don't know how long I will live. I don't know if I am already claimed. Some nights I wake to cold fingers on my shoulder, whispers of my name in the dark. The shadows have no mercy. They have patience. And they remember every soldier, every fear, every scream forever. Camp Blackhawk remains abandoned. Fort Carson, too. Officially, they are off limits due to structural hazards. But I know the truth. The shadows are still there, waiting, watching, learning. I cannot return. I cannot sleep without fear. But I write this so someone, somewhere, knows the truth. The mountains are alive. The shadows are real. And if you ever find yourself near Camp Blackhawk or the old fort, run. Do not look back. Do not hesitate. And whatever you do, do not be